So welcome to our first podcast of the 2020 winter season. We're excited to have everybody back and I hope some of you join us on Facebook Live. Today we're kind of in a different setup with our new COVID world, so we are social distancing and quarantining, and so we are actually in two different suites here at the OSU library, and so I'm in one room and our guest is in the next room over, so we're talking via glass. And today joining us is Dr. Andrine Shufran, who is the director of the Insect Adventure, which is the insect zoo that's just west of campus, right next to the Botanic Garden. And so we're excited to have Andrine join us. You've been on the show several times, and we always enjoy your passion and enthusiasm for insects. So let's talk about bugs first. So
sounds exciting to me.
Thank you for joining us. So how did you get into insects? Let's talk a little bit about that.
I kind of cheated. There are lots of kids who are born crazy and love bugs, but I had a father, a sister, and now my husband who are entomologists.
Oh my gosh, so you really
raised on bugs.
You really got the bug.
Literally. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm stung in every way possible. But the cool thing about that to me is that even though I am immersed in my personal life in entomology, I also every day discover 10 new things,
right?
Because this is such a big group of animals. There's always stuff going on, and science shows and movies and whatever. There's just so much entomology to learn. And that passion, that drives my passion.
Yeah.
I'll hear something and be like, can you believe this? Oh my God. And my husband and I try and outdo each other sometimes. Like, do you know what lightning beetle larvae eat?
You do an insect trivia sort of thing?
Yeah. Well, it's just like one up and actually.
Okay.
Like, can you answer this? Because I can.
So let me, totally lost where I was going with this, but basically your enthusiasm and your passion is kind of like me with horticulture, because it's like as much as you think you know, and you are knowing, there's always more to know. It's kind of like if you were to move across the world, they have different insects and different plants there too, and so you're always
even if I move to a different part of Oklahoma, because we have so many biomes.
Oh, okay.
Each of those different biomes has a different set of insects that are innate to that area.
So do you and your sister and your dad and your husband have different areas of specialization that you're?
Sure.
Okay.
My father was a research entomologist, and so he was one of the pioneers of mass rearing. Trichogramma wasps, little parasitic wasps where you raise them by the tens of millions to sell. I let those go in the house one time. Not a good idea.
Oh my gosh.
He kind of pioneered how to make that successful and the quality control on it. And he was specifically trichogramma wasps and green lacewings. So that was basically his whole research career, was establishing beneficial insectaries.
Oh, okay.
So, we did bug stuff, but
was that kind of a pioneer thing in his day?
He was the one.
I was gonna say, that seems like to talk about beneficial insects,
this is in the 60s.
A generation before, yeah.
Yeah, he was the one who did I guess you'd say the agricultural engineering of it.
Okay.
To make sure, because green lacewing especially are very cannibalistic. They'll eat each other. And so to raise millions of them in a small space, he had to design a way to keep them from eating each other so that they could ship them and send them to greenhouses and fields and that sort of thing. So he did a lot of that, like, will this plastic make them sick, or how small
which really is kind of a tangent from the insect thing. I mean, that's into packaging and how to best handle them and secure their safety on arrival and that sort of stuff. So
he was a mechanic.
Okay.
In his hobby side.
Okay.
He worked on cars.
So that engineering kind of mind, he really.
Yeah, he liked to. And as I get older, I find I like that too now.
Yeah.
It's great. I'm like, I have a little bit of an engineering me too. I can fix this. And So that's kind of fun. But he was 100% research.
Okay.
And research to me was always, quiet and boring, and we go to the lab and it wasn't until I was working on my bachelor's at A&M in 1995 or 6.
We don't have to say dates.
A while ago, that I was actually doing a horticulture degree.
Okay.
At Texas A&M, which is a great place to go if you want to get a horticulture degree, as well as here.
I mean, if you like that other color.
Yeah, that red thing.
So you were down there doing your graduate work at Texas A&M.
No, it was my bachelor's.
Oh, you're okay, undergrad.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
it was in horticulture. I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
okay.
my first. And so to add on a double major with entomology was really straightforward.
Oh, okay.
Because they just all worked together. I had to take horticulture entomology anyway, and crop insects and ecology and all that kind of stuff. So it was easy to tack on a second major, and then I kind of had these two things that I loved, and I found there aren't a lot of other people who are interested in all of that.
Yeah.
And so I don't speak Spanish, and horticulture you need a lot of Spanish, and I don't have that. And so I do horticulture as my hobby, and I do insects as my job. But the research side never interested me. It was always talking to people and finding out their interests and figuring out a way to talk to people about a group of animals that they don't think they like.
Right.
And make it fun and make it where it's not condescending.
That's why we get along, because I'm like that same sort of mentality, but with plants.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, okay, tell me you don't like plants or don't like gardening, and I'm gonna find a way to make it work into your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it's very satisfying. I go to a state fair, county fair, or a Girl Scout meeting, and they're all like, everybody's all icky gooey.
Yeah.
And by the end, everybody is engaged, and they're tied up against me, and they're asking questions, and some questions still with young people. I still, after 20 years of being an insect zoo specialist, an outreach person, I still get kids that will ask a question that I've never thought of, it's never occurred to me. And that's always really exciting. Well, how does this work on a centipede? How are they able to move their bodies? Like, oh, good. Let me get a pencil. I'll draw this out for you.
Right.
And so it never gets boring. I have a very, very short attention span. My husband gets annoyed because I can't sit through a movie. So I'm in the middle. I go get some ice cream, and then I clean up the kitchen, and I'm watching kind of out of the corner of my eye, and I just can't do that. So my job is stimulating to me every day, because it's different every day. There's new things to learn every day. People are asking me to do new things every day.
Well, I think it's your passion for insects that really is contagious towards the public. And I've interacted with you a lot, and I've also seen you teach. I've just kind of been a fly on the wall, and I've experienced how you teach. And I think, whether that's at the state fair, I've seen you do stuff there. I've seen you down at the Myriad Gardens working with your graduate students and stuff, and it's very contagious, your enthusiasm. So
it's fun, and then it feeds on itself.
It does, and it comes across, I think, on our show when you're doing segments for our show. So
yeah.
So I have a random question for you. What is your favorite insect?
Well, that's
I'm sure you get that a lot, though.
Yes, and for me, it's a tricky question.
Okay, it's like picking your favorite plant for me.
Kind of, yeah. That would be very
hard.
It would be,
yeah.
Well, it's different every day, when the Lespedeza is blooming.
Depends on the season, right?
And when the pea pods come up, the peas are my favorite because they're so cute. And I'm like that too. So insect applies to the bugs that have 6 legs.
Okay, so you're taking me very literal when I ask that question.
Right.
Yes.
As an entomologist.
Well, I did say insect instead of bug, because bug, I knew you would say that's one class of insects, right? True bugs.
But the term bug to
Hemiptera, is that right? Am I right on that?
yeah, those are, but that would be true bugs.
Right, true bugs.
And they define true bugs because people use the word
bug as
anything with an exoskeleton.
Right.
So that's shrimp and crabs and lobsters and spiders and millipedes and centipedes and insects. But those are
You're like, if
different.
it's on a plate, lobster is my favorite bug.
Yes,
right?
definitely. When I can afford lobster, it's my favorite bug in the whole world.
Nice butter sauce.
The clarified stuff, where they take out all the goo, that's good stuff. It's an excuse to just shovel in the butter
Exactly.
a little bit.
So your favorite insect?
Right.
Sorry.
No. So usually my favorite insect is like my favorite plant. It's whatever is doing really well, or that we're trying something new. We've got Goliath Beetles that are coming in this week, and I've never raised Goliath
I've
Beetles.
never heard of a Goliath Beetle.
Yeah, these are the biggest Scarab Beetles on Earth. They're like 70 millimeters. They're really, really big.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and so we're going to try those. And so I'm really excited. I'm reading about those and getting excited. But
Are those black, like the big black?
But they're white with black markings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look up, like if our listeners look up Goliath Beetle on the web, you'll see it's a huge scarab.
Okay.
And it has black and white markings.
Okay.
But yeah, it's one
Like
of the big
cottonwood borer?
No,
I'm thinking of, but
like a
the markings
huge
of-
June beetle.
Yeah, no, I know a scarab beetle, but like
Right.
the markings of a cottonwood borer that has the black and white.
Kind of,
No?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
And they're both beetles,
Yeah.
so they're the same kind of white,
Okay.
where it's you can rub it off. It's not actually
Gotcha.
a color like in butterflies.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Okay.
So favorite insect is different from favorite bug,
Okay.
and favorite bug is a centipede.
Oh.
I am fascinated by centipedes. They're so active and they're carnivorous, so you can throw things in and they'll run around and you can watch them wrap their bodies around and start chewing them down, and they get really big and they're super fast and they're really elegant. They clean their legs and their antennae all the time because they're ground dwellers, and people are always surprised to find out arthropods are much cleaner than people are, because they fastidiously take off their dirt and their microbes and their fungal spores, because that would hurt their system. So they'll stop every so often and they clean their entire body, and it's like bug ballet as they move each leg through their mouth parts to clean it off, and then they move to the next one. And
That's
they move to
something
the
we need
next
to
one.
do, Kevin,
It's
is like a
beautiful.
slow-mo. You know how you see the flower blossom open?
Yeah.
Like we need to do a slow-mo of a insect cleaning, or not
Yeah.
not an insect, a bug, right? Cleaning, because it has more legs than 8.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
cleaning itself or something
Yeah.
like that.
And centipedes and millipedes have a real interesting biology, that both of the millipede and the centipede start off with only 6 legs. And I think it's magic. People think butterflies are magic because they go from a sack of goo and they turn into this winged, gorgeous thing. Well, millipedes and centipedes start off with 6 legs, and they're
So they do start with 6 eggs, like an insect.
almost
but-
microscopic. And then every time they molt, they shed their exoskeleton. Every time they molt, they add a new segment.
Oh.
And they just keep adding
So can
segments.
you count the segments to figure like their age, or?
You can figure more their health.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't happen at a regular time, but it's dependent on how much food they're getting, the quality of the food,
Okay.
whether it's human, that sort of thing. And so it's magic. They get bigger and bigger and longer, and they get more and more legs. And each time they grow a new section, they have to coordinate that set of legs, and so they grow a new brain. Inside
Wow.
that, each segment has a separate brain.
Wow.
And they all work together in this beautiful flowing pattern to be able to walk.
Well, I've always, it's so, like you said, a dance to watch
Yeah.
them walk, because it's almost like I saw the parade, the Rockettes when they're doing their
Yeah.
kicking, It's
Yeah.
so synchronized the way, it's
Exactly.
like a wave of their legs that go down.
Yeah,
So,
very elegant
yeah.
as they go along. And so they're just fun to sit and watch.
Very good.
Favorite insect is really whatever we're working with at the time, or
So what are you doing with these
whatever,
scarab? What did you call them again?
Goliath.
Goliath. What are you doing with them that are coming in?
We've been very fortunate, unfortunately, with everybody else's unfortune. We have, as our Insect Adventure Zoo, we have the backing of the university, and so we're not dependent 100% on people paying us to come visit. And unfortunately, many of the other impressively huge insect zoos, the Insectarium in New Orleans, and there's one in Seattle that closed. So these big zoos don't have any staff, so they're having to dump all of their animals. Everything from centipedes and millipedes to huge tarantulas and different kinds of beetles, and we've got,
so you're acquiring
walking sticks, some
things.
And at least in the hope that if we take care of them and we keep the colonies big and healthy,
that they can repopulate them when they get
exactly. That when everything gets back on their feet, we can redisperse. We can disperse everything back.
Yeah.
But that means we're also seeing and using a lot of different insects that we don't normally keep.
I bet.
So
it's like Andrina's Christmas presents come true.
Oh, it is. It is. The ladies in the front office are so great because we want to be sure the insects are healthy when they arrive, and so as soon as the box arrives from overnight, you cut it open immediately to see, give them some air and see if they're all right.
So in the world of quarantining, do you have to quarantine them before you bring them in? Like, what's that? And I know let's touch on that also, but I know with some of the tropical stuff, you have a USDA license, is
Permit.
that correct? Permit, in order to keep them, and there's all these regulations that go into that. So let's cover all of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of about the quarantine of the stuff you're getting in first.
And that in itself is a whole another engineering side
I bet.
of it, and the only reason I think to me that it feels 100% natural is that growing up, my father had a quarantine insect facility.
Okay.
And then when I was in New Mexico working on my master's, that's when I got my first taste of running my own quarantine, and it was a very small space. And now I have this big quarantine, and sometimes we have as many as 80 species.
Wow.
And I have to remember that while it's second nature to me to look in the mirror before I leave the rearing room to make sure I don't have any strays that are taking hitchhikers that are trying to get out or anything, that's not always true.
But it's not like they're all in there just playing together, right?
No,
like it's not like you walk in with these insects flying around.
No. Common misconception. No, they all have containers that are specific, all these qualifications and metrics to the container for each of the different kinds of species, and to be sure that they don't escape, because since they're not native, they have the potential to be able to get loose and become a pest.
Right.
Where we let go of monarch butterflies in a different part of the United States, it's not considered an invasive species.
Because they're migrating through the North America anyway, right?
Right, yeah. And they'll go back in line and not lay eggs where they don't lay eggs in like Virginia or something.
Right,
they do the other stuff. But ours,
like you're dealing with stuff that would never potentially migrate here or anything, right? Like you're dealing stuff from Asia or South America or wherever.
Right. And so we have one of the very few USDA APHIS inspection permits for arthropods in the whole state of Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
So I have to be very careful with who we let into the rearing facility, who comes in and out of the quarantine, because if somebody, I don't know, untrustworthy gets an idea, or one of my students is hungover on a Friday and they don't think about what they're doing, and those animals get loose and show up anywhere.
Yeah.
There's
Guess-
only one
guess
place.
whose door they're knocking on.
There's only one place that those could have come from,
Right.
in all of the state, and then you lose your permit,
Right.
which means then we're only able to use native insects. And while there are a ton of cool native insects, they aren't 70 millimeters long.
Right, and part of the zoo is to be able to, whether it's a real zoo like Oklahoma
Yeah.
City Zoo or the insect zoo. I mean, part of the fun is to go and see the exotic that you don't
Yeah.
normally see in
That
your
you
life.
would never have the opportunity
Yeah.
to. And then we pride ourselves on being able to handle things. We don't keep things that are going to sting. We don't handle things that are going to bite or whatever.
Right.
The animals we choose are animals that you can physically interact with. You can touch the big beetle, it's not going to bite you. And,
Right.
And you can pet the millipede, it's not going to sting you. All these.
And it's been handled by so many kids over the. I mean, I know it's different ones probably, but
Yeah.
still they get handled pretty regularly,
Yes.
whether it's by you or your staff or visitors. That
Yeah.
they're kind of like, okay, we're doing this again. It's like feeding the elephants at the zoo. Okay,
Yeah.
we're doing this
I'll
again.
eat this hay if I have to.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. They're a lot. I don't know. They just seem a lot calmer
mhm.
when they're interacting with people. They don't move fast or
Right.
be bothersome. We get the largest, the least scary, least dangerous, and then the species that we can comfortably rear. So
Okay.
those are the three qualifications I think of when I'm bringing a new insect, a new bug, to rear in our facility. Is it really big? Are we going to be able to interact with
Has
it?
it got a wow factor?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Is it an oh my
Yeah.
kind of bug? Is it something that we can easily rear without having to build a bunch of stuff, and that it's safe?
Mhm.
Big, safe, easy to take care of. So
Okay.
those are the animals that we have. We're not trying to breed things that are really hard, or ours is all about play,
Yeah.
and interaction with people.
So, are you getting any from these other places that you're like not right for us or not a good fit, or
Yeah,
some that
they're-
are maybe a little bit more like we'll take it, but it's going to be a little more adapting to find a habitat that works or whatever.
Yeah. And the Goliath Beetle definitely falls into that.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'll throw this in because it's so much fun.
Okay.
Goliath beetles are a huge scarab beetle,
Uh-huh.
Just like a June bug. They're in the same.
Wasn't that a scare for people who might not have Googled? Isn't that on like some movie? I'm wanting to think of like the
The Mummy?
The Mummy. I was
Yeah.
thinking some Egyptian movie. Is it on the Mummy?
It is, but that's not.
That's not the Goliath.
No, and it's not a real.
It's not real.
There are no scarab beetles anywhere on Earth in any history of time that eat flesh.
Okay,
Period.
but that is a scarab beetle.
Yes, the shape
So-
of the body
right,
and stuff, but
so-
none of them move that fast.
Okay.
None of them eat flesh.
Well, I don't even think I've seen that movie, but I just remember
Yeah.
some Egyptian movie that had a scarab beetle that I was trying to think
they
of.
get in
so.
his pants, and then from his pants they actually like chew into
Yeah,
his leg.
yeah.
And so they come up under his
So that's
skin.
what you're dealing with as far as
Yeah.
the stereotype when
misconceptions.
Yeah, misconception of like this insect is not gonna do
Exactly. And on the one side, the kids don't have that
Yeah.
if they haven't watched a lot of TV or seen a lot of movies. Younger kids, they're not born afraid
Mhm.
of something an inch or two long.
Right.
That's just not logical. But it doesn't take many times for having mom scream at the top of her lungs for you to get
Or dad.
or
right?
dad. Actually, more dad than mom. There are more women professional entomologists than there are men.
Oh, really? Okay.
Professional entomologists now. It's definitely it's a woman's field. But yes, dads too do all
to
that
train the kids to be scared of
to be
something.
scared, and they do it with love because they love their children and they're protecting their children, but they're also creating something that will affect their life in a negative way
Mhm.
because they're going to be terrified of teeny tiny spiders, and people talk about June bugs that they get on them and it scares them to death because you grab a June bug and all it does is hold tighter. But if you were being picked up by
a giant,
the
you would
Empire
hold on
State Building, you would hold on to whatever you could find too.
That's funny.
You know, you have to kind of think about it from their perspective. So we were talking about scarabs.
Andrina, the insect whisperer.
It's just kind of training yourself on how to handle them rather than grabbing. That's just an eating motion, and they're going to get really scared.
Yeah. So the Scarab Beetle, you're having to recreate the habitat for it a little bit. This Goliath.
The new Goliath Beetle. Yeah, and it's very unique because as the larvae, which are white grubs that you see in the soil, those are Scarab Beetle larvae. Those are June bug babies.
Okay.
And for the Goliath Beetle, it's the only species of scarab that the larva, the grub, is carnivorous. It's a predator in the soil.
So what does it eat? Like worms? Other grubs?
Exactly.
Okay.
Anything that it can get a hold of when it's that's smaller than it. So I mean, but it turns into a grub that's insanely huge.
That's impressive.
Yeah, a big white grub, and but you can see they have big bitey teeth, and they're actually catching wireworms and other beetle larvae or caterpillars or whatever they can find along the way. And that's very unusual to feed an animal that's subterranean,
carnivorous,
other live stuff. So luckily we can raise mealworms. They're very easy to raise. Cockroaches.
So do you have to till those into the soil for it?
A little bit.
Or do you just sprinkle them on top and they come up and get them? Or?
So all of the above.
Okay.
What's even cooler is the to keep that small. You don't want to have this huge tank for this huge grub. It's like a maze, like a zigzag, and you just fill the maze with dirt, and every other day you come in and you put a mealworm in on the top a little bit further.
So it works its way through.
It works its way through, and you can see kind of how far along it is in its development by how far it's gone through the maze in the soil, and then at the end it'll run out of food and it'll pupate. It'll turn into the pupa and then turn into the actual beetle.
So you know the length of the maze is the time it needs to pupate.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not reinventing anything. I've been to where we're getting the beetles from and seen the setup.
They've done all of this,
Right. They've spent many decades trying to get this big beetle to successfully rear.
Right.
Because the soil temperature and the type of fungus that's in the soil, all of that is super important to it being healthy and raising. So all I'm doing is copying people that were smarter and more dedicated so that we can have those animals that nobody else can have.
Wow, that's awesome. So you're not just getting a box of insects. I assume they're giving you some of these sort of maze boxes as well to do it, or you're having
I have a student worker who loves to build things.
Okay, so it's something that you could build that you're making.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's done before.
Okay.
We have those
Gotcha.
out, but they'll come. What's interesting is they'll come as adults.
Okay.
So we don't ship the larvae, or they don't. Albuquerque isn't going to ship the larvae because they're more sensitive.
Okay.
Instead, they gave me a harem.
Okay.
Or harem, as you're supposed to say it. The many being like half a dozen of newly hatched females.
Okay.
And one male.
Oh, I was going to say, you need another.
Yeah, it's like with roosters. If you put two males in there, they're going to spend all of their time fighting each other.
Right.
If you have one really big, beautiful, healthy male, he's going to mate with all of those females as often as he can, and then they start laying eggs.
Okay.
And so you'll see them disappear under the soil, and they lay eggs. And the eggs are visible. They're little white circles.
Do you have to worry about inbreeding? I know we're getting off on a tangent here. But
do.
with insects, is
You
that
do.
a thing? Okay.
Especially if 30 30 years ago, somebody got permission to bring in a new kind of walking stick, and for a while they were the only ones who had them. So the very small genetic base, bottleneck there, and so when they get the rearing conditions and directions really well done, then they'll send those insects, those walking sticks, to a bunch of other zoos, and they'll each breed up their own colony. And those colonies then can be shared.
Well, I know, again, on traditional zoos,
yeah,
they're sharing lions and elephants so that they can do that sort of thing. So.
And certainly for a lion or a tiger or an elephant, they have a track record, you know, of exactly a big book of where that one came from and that sort of thing. And we don't necessarily go that far. Some insect zoos have to, because they're under certain requirements, but we don't have to do that. We just keep a record of where it came from and the date that it came and how many. And then we know we don't want to get any more from Seattle, but we can get some from Florida.
So you said some of these zoos are closing, unfortunately.
Very unfortunately.
Hopefully just temporarily.
Some permanently.
We're the only one here in the Oklahoma, an insect zoo.
We are Oklahoma's only live bug petting zoo.
Which is an incredible asset, because I imagine not every state has an insect zoo.
No.
And there's probably not one, I don't think there's one in Dallas, is there? Like, I mean, that would probably be the next Mecca area to go to.
There's one in Houston. There's a big one in Houston.
Okay, but that's still a 10-hour drive away or so.
And then strangely, there's one in Galveston, which is right next door to Houston, that just whoever wants to take on the regulations and building the quarantine facility and that sort of thing.
So it's really a jewel and a privilege to have this here as a resource in Oklahoma. And so
it is.
One question I want to touch on before we kind of get into the insect zoo, and you can tell us some more details about just what all you offer. How many do you have in your collection? How many insects, bugs, creatures do you?
So we count species.
Okay.
And so for a walking stick species, it's a colony, and we don't necessarily count each individual,
right?
But we count it as a colony.
Right. Okay.
We have had in the past as many as 80 different species at one time.
Yeah.
We used to have 13 species of cockroaches. You know, like that's a very impressive thing to tell somebody who's going to turn around and walk away from you. We've grown.
A certain
and shrunk.
audience would appreciate that number, and a certain audience would
There is an Entomological Society of America.
They would be impressed with that.
And I can go make presentations.
That's something to put on your resume.
Definitely.
So you have 13, and you had up to 80, and what are you at now?
Right. So it comes and goes, and so for a while we had very few. We were like 25 or so, and we're kind of in between now.
Okay.
We're more at like 45.
Okay.
Different species.
But maybe growing, it sounds like.
Yeah, it will take whatever people want to not freeze.
Yeah.
Because that's the only other alternative. All of these insects that people have cared for and reared and made big colonies and kept notes of and loved and hugged and gave entertainment. Like, you have to give entertainment to a tarantula.
You do.
To be able to keep it the same way you do to a zebra or a giraffe, or, you know, they have to have
some sort of
entertainment.
What is that called? The enrichment
That's
activity?
The word
That's
for it.
the word
Yeah.
I was looking for. Yeah, enrichment.
Have to do that with
so you freeze,
tarantulas.
fish in blocks of ice for polar bears or whatever.
Right, so they get to pick it.
So what are some enrichment other than the maze?
Right. So for tarantulas, it's very stressful for them, actually. So I don't know why people try and do this, but the tarantula likes everything to just be small and close and calm, and nothing moves.
Okay.
So when something moves, then that alarms them, and they have to figure out whether it's something to eat or they're going to be eaten.
Oh.
So all of ours are hand-fed.
Yeah.
But what they do for the enrichment of the tarantulas is they move all the things around in their cage to a different place. or add something new and then take something out and that sort of thing. So the poor tarantula, like once a week, has a whole new shape.
Environment.
Yeah, which means all of the webbing and all of the network of sensory communication that she's set up all over the cage, that's all destroyed. So she has to go through it all again to know, because she's really pretty blind.
Okay.
So she's feeling everything that's in her habitat.
Yeah, that sounds like a cruel,
Yeah.
like to go in and recreate a blind person's living environment.
Yeah, but it's required by law
to do that.
to have enrichment. Yeah.
Okay.
For even the tarantulas.
So I assume there is somewhere in your resources like how enrichment activities for tarantulas, like
Luckily,
you have access to this information somewhere. I had no idea there was this kind of curriculum out there.
So there's an organization, the American Zoological Association,
Yeah.
the AZA.
So that insects is included in that.
Correct.
Okay.
And they have to keep species records and births and numbers and try and breed. Say they get an endangered species of insect, they're the ones that'll try and breed it up. We are not AZA because we don't do any really mammals or anything with bones.
Right.
If it doesn't have bones, nobody cares
Okay.
about it. So we're not AZA.
Okay.
We're government sanctioned,
Mhm.
and we have our permits, and we're very particular about quarantine and containment. But AZA, they're required by law to provide all of their animals with enrichment. So the millipedes, they get different kinds of food on different days, and the millipedes get little different things to hide underneath. And they change that out, and the millipede has to make a whole new home.
Do you have to keep records that you're doing this?
The AZA does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you guys don't have to.
No,
Okay.
no. We're just a lot more straightforward.
Okay.
And there are about 100 insect zoos around the North America, around the United States and Canada, and some really totally amazing ones. What's very special and very different about the insect adventure, the Oklahoma insect adventure, is that we are, as far as I know, we are really one of the only insect petting zoos that travels.
Right. Which is a big thing. Let's go ahead and talk about that and how that's changed with our COVID world we're living in now. But yeah. So in a traditional year, let's talk about what the insect zoo and how it travels and what that means, what that setup is.
So most insect zoo facilities are a place that you go to, you pay your fee, you handle some things, or you just walk around and you look at things in cages like you do at a zoo,
right?
At a mammal zoo or bone zoo, whatever. You wander around and see things. Ours, we do have a facility where you can come and you can visit on first and third Saturdays.
Right, and it's on Virginia, right off of Hall of Fame, west of campus.
Right next to the Botanic Garden.
Yes.
Our properties butt up
Yeah.
right against each other, which is wonderful.
Yeah,
for
a lot
summer
of people
camps.
like to come to both things. So
yeah, it makes a
come.
great day trip.
Yeah.
And if the weather's nice, or for Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts in summer camp, you know, we just walk down the street and we're in the Botanic Garden.
And do you want to plug your hours? Because you have open house hours right now.
Right.
Do you want to mention those real quick?
So to visit the Insect Adventure facility, right now we're doing open hours on every first and third Saturday of every month, so far without exception, every month from 10 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon.
Okay.
And we picked the first and third Saturdays because that is also, in the summertime, that is the Botanic Gardens
Open house.
Open house is first and third Saturdays, just to try and utilize that closeness to encourage people to have a really wonderful experience. But
so if you're coming from a long way away, you're getting 2 for 1 sort of a deal.
yeah, you can really get to know Stillwater and see people and meet people and have to stay long enough to eat at a restaurant and help the economy
right.
a little bit.
Enjoy your day in Stillwater.
Exactly.
A lot of times they're on football game days too, if you're coming up here for the games.
Yeah, and sometimes it seems like that's a great thing, and
Right.
sometimes that means we don't get a single
I think it depends on the
person.
season of the football season.
Yeah, what the weather's like,
Yeah.
when the game starts, and
yeah,
all that kind of stuff. But ours travels.
Travel, yeah.
So most insect zoo facilities, it's enough to try and manage a facility.
Right.
You've got the maintenance of the building, you've got the maintaining your quarantine, and that includes the ventilation and the water and the doorway and all of the students that work there. They have to follow a lot of rules. And
when you travel, you have to take all of that stuff with you.
right. And most people don't want to hassle with all of that.
Because you have to worry about them escaping still when you're traveling.
Right. So so we have these little presentation boxes that are small. They're not the homes that they live in. They live in big habitats. But they have these small boxes, and those boxes have to be sealed.
They're like a clear acrylic type box, right?
That's handleable,
Yeah.
so that we can pass it around in a classroom or have kids sit on the floor and they can pass those boxes back and forth.
And sometimes the lid's on them, and sometimes it's not.
Exactly.
So
and some of the
on what
lids
it is.
are off that you would be very surprised are off. So we have to pack those into a cooler, and that cooler has to be sealed.
Oh.
In case there's a car crash.
Oh.
And so...
See, I would have never even thought about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the containment regulations and like the list of rules, it's 12 pages long. That I have
a lot of fine print.
We have to do all of these things because a person from the USDA can walk up to us at the state fair and they can ask to see our setup. And if our setup isn't secure, there goes the permit again. Right. So we try and follow all these rules. But going into a classroom or into a school, it's such a great experience. So often now, it's just expensive and hard for teachers to take field trips. But I remember all the field trips I went to when I was in elementary school because we went away. And so my attention was more focused. And so I loved field trips.
And you were learning, but it was just a different type of learning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And getting out of that space where you are bored with the space kind of.
Yeah, the desk.
But that's so expensive for teachers now. And so we try and bring usually about 25 different kinds of bugs with us into a school. And during the day, we'll go from, one classroom to another classroom to another classroom, and we don't typically try to go into the classroom. Try and be like on a rug out in the hall, kind of thing, so that they're in a slightly different setup. They're not sitting at their desk, but they're sitting on the floor, and they're in a circle or a group or a couple of lines, and then that is enough of a change where they don't have to pay for bus fees and try and organize a whole...
Well, now they can move the classrooms through without you having to reset.
Exactly. I have done, I don't recommend it, but I have done 14 presentations in one day. Because
you're like, have I said this already?
By the third one, I'm like, have you seen the vinegaroon? Okay, you haven't seen the vinegaroon, so I'll show you the vinegaroon. But that's such a short period of time that the kids get to experience the bugs that they may only touch 2 or 3. Where if we have the whole classroom, we can get through most of the 25 because kids are fascinated by bugs. And being able to touch them, you can see that spark. And all of a sudden, there's all these questions. And sometimes they're the same questions from classroom to classroom. That's
or stories, right?
Yeah, you lots of stories.
Any questions? Yeah, I want to tell you about it.
I had this black widow in my backyard, and Dad went out and stepped on it. Yes, that's good. Okay. So,
but you do other, like you go into the classroom, you do
classrooms come to us.
You do the state fairs a lot of times.
County fairs, we usually do about a dozen. County fairs in the fall, in the late summer and in the fall, travel and be there for a couple of days, and usually they bring the school children through like Thursday and Friday, and they have a chance to experience it. Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, 4-H. I mean, there's a lot of entomology in 4-H that just gets glossed over because there isn't somebody who's willing to kind of take it on. And so I try and advertise, and it's my job. I will take it on.
Yeah.
You know, contact me, and you don't have to learn all about entomology. I will teach this.
Yeah,
and the
so
kids
if you
will
have
learn
any
it.
4-H club leaders out there that want, have that kid that's interested in entomology.
Yep. And
let them know.
FFA.
Yeah.
There's a national the state contest in FFA
FFA,
for entomology, and 4-H, and then Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. They each have a insect study merit badge.
Oh, okay.
And of course, we have workbooks and stuff to do that, and we usually do that in the summer. And for the Girl Scouts, it takes 3 hours, and they get their merit badge. And I hate this. And for the Boy Scouts, they get 2 days.
Oh, wow.
It takes at least 10 hours to do all the things that are on the merit badge requirement for boys.
Wow, okay.
But still, there are more women in entomology than there are.
We just don't need as much time to get it done.
We get it in 2 hours, and we're good. So they're really birthday parties.
I was going to mention, I don't think we're there yet with my kids, but you're going to be on our list of a birthday party location.
Yeah.
So
it's fun because you get the whole place for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So you have the
and
outside.
it's like a private, right?
Yep.
Like, so
Nobody
you're not going to have
else-
other people coming in.
No
and
coming
that
and
sort of
going. It's a set aside time, and we set out tables with bug tablecloths, and then they have the outside, all the nets and the collection stuff. They can go outside and run around.
And do you kind of help structure that? I mean, like, is there something like a formal birthday presentation? Like you say, here, touch this?
It depends
or-
on the age.
Okay.
We've had as young as 3.
Yeah, that's
and
where
4.
mine's at. That's why I'm like, we're not there yet, but yeah.
We recommend that 4 and older.
I was going to say like 6 maybe or
Yeah.
8. Yeah.
But I've done 6-month-olds.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, and there's no fear. Like
Uh-huh.
you can
I'm
take
sure.
the biggest tarantula you have and set it on a 6-month-old's face, 6-month-old's face,
Oh my gosh.
and they not a problem.
Not
'cause
the baby
they're not
photo I
trained.
was looking for,
No,
but
if you have a sister, a father, and a husband in entomology, then
That's
it's the baby
there you
photo,
go, yeah.
and it's the perfect
Yeah.
baby photo.
we
But
put ours
do
next to a baby calf.
That's right. Exactly. And
Yeah.
those kill more people than spiders do
Right.
by a long shot.
So-
But it's what
Yeah.
you're accustomed to.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I can't be around cattle and horses. They scare
Oh, really?
the pee out of me. They're big and teeth and hooves, and I know how many people they kill every year, and they have these big dead eyes on the side of their head.
Well, I
and-
will say,
Ooh, scare me.
because I'm married to a cattle farmer. I live on a farm, but and I have a healthy respect for cattle, but bulls especially. You know, I mean, you never know. They're animals. They are animals. You know, and you have to have a healthy respect for animals. But
Yeah. Unpredictability.
I think my dad did me a disservice a little bit if he's listening. But I can remember at like the age of 8, you know, you're a small girl. He gave me a bucket of food to go in to feed some mama cows. And, you know, what do mama cows do when they've got a bucket of feed? And I'm like, why are these cows coming after me?
Help me, help
so
me.
still to this day, I'm a little like, you know,
Yeah.
don't give me a bucket of food. Like, I'm fine in a vehicle. We can drive through this.
Yes, that's how I like to look at cows
Yeah.
and horses, is from a vehicle,
Yeah. So.
just like an African safari. And I don't want to get too close. It's not what I'm comfortable
But a baby
with.
bottle calf is the cutest thing. So anyway.
Yeah, at the state fair, I always go to the baby section where they have like 18
Oh,
piglets on one mom,
the
and
petty.
all the tiny
The
little
poor mom.
babies.
The poor
Yeah.
mom.
That's the one poor little runt that never finds any milk. A little tiny pig.
So as we go down different tangents, and people are on Facebook, so if anybody
Yeah.
has, I should have started this out this way. If anybody has questions, they can chime in on the comment section. And
I love questions.
Yeah, so we are happy to answer those.
And in science, there are no dumb questions.
Absolutely not.
People always preface like, well, I've got kind of a dumb question. I'm like, that's all science
Give it
is.
to me. I want to hear it. Yeah.
Science is asking questions and trying to find the answer.
Yeah.
Whether you have to do the research yourself or you study it from another person, But that is science, and that's why kids are the best scientists.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because they're curious.
Why?
Because they're curious. Exactly.
They have all of this desire to learn, and if all we do is give them positive experiences, that's the best thing for science and technology and mathematics that we can do, is give them positive experiences so they're drawn into these STEM.
Yeah.
We don't say math is scary, oh it's hard, this class is you'll never pass, or that bugs are icky. Everything, if you make it positive, then it's natural for kids.
Yeah. Going back to high school, I can remember we had to do your what are those called, the black and white research notebooks that you had, and they were always like, don't erase anything,
right.
Just draw a line through it. And I didn't want my teacher to know my thoughts that were wrong, you know what I mean? I was so like, I need to erase it. But now as an adult, I understand it's okay to have those wrong thoughts or those whatever incorrect.
It's better.
And so the teacher can see your line of thought and where you're going, and that's creativity, or that's something that person hasn't thought of, but that's not necessarily wrong. It's just maybe wasn't the right avenue to go on. So it's that Thomas Edison thing. I've learned
you've got to brainstorm
99 ways how not to make a light bulb before I made one. So
exactly, before you get it right. That's science. I mean, we accept that we can fail and fail and fail. And I try to work with teachers as much as I get a chance. I teach a course called Entomology for educators.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Which is actually for undergraduate service teachers that are going to be elementary and high school teachers, and just to give them a little bit of science. But
is that something that a teacher who is an experienced teacher could possibly take?
Always,
or,
yeah, definitely, and it can be very malleable to fit different ages and to fit different curriculum and that sort of thing. But teaching a teacher that it's okay to be wrong is one of
sometimes teachers are the hardest students.
The most important thing. They're kids are harsh.
Yeah.
But for a teacher to embrace failure and say, oh well, it's so great for kids.
Yeah.
Or not a kid asking a question. Well, I thought I heard that was wrong, and don't speak, Johnny. Slam their curiosity and their critical thinking skills. Just be comfortable with the fact that everybody is wrong 99% of the time.
Yeah.
And that's just the way the world is.
I
it's
think
not
that's
perfect.
Something that I embraced when I got into extension.
Yeah.
Because it's, you're bombarded with all these calls coming in. What's this? And you're the extension educator.
Right.
You're supposed to have the answers. And
right now,
every day you are proven you don't know the answers, and hosting this show, I don't know all the plan answers, and so it's kind of like the humbling yourself of and being okay with that and being aware of it. And it's like, you know what, I don't know, but I can I'll look, I'll research, I'll figure it out, I'll talk with people.
And what a great attitude to have.
And we'll learn together,
that you embrace working in groups. And you admit that you can be wrong. I mean, think how great that's going to be for the rest of your life. Well, if that's a natural response to brainstorming and questions like being wrong's okay.
We went to a couple of school gardens, I guess 2 seasons ago. We didn't really travel last season, but 2 seasons ago, and there was one teacher in particular that really stood out, and she was that way. She was like, I'm not a gardener. I don't know what I'm doing, but we're doing this, and I am learning, and it's kind of like, if we don't do something right, we talk through why it didn't work out, and that's the lesson. That why it didn't work out is the lesson. Even though my plan was for this to be the lesson, you just go with it, and then you talk through that issue, and you talk through that problem, and how can we restructure it for next season and go forward. Right. So it was pretty.
Kids always pepper me with questions. We're doing an insect zoo presentation, got these animals out, and they're peppering me with questions. And I learned a few years ago, they'll answer those questions. I mean, some of the questions are even really simple. That if they thought for 2.5 seconds, they could figure it all out. I just turn it around and ask them what they think. because
they need to be through that thought process.
Yeah, and they seem to enjoy that. I mean, the information comes down from the entomologist, and you learn it, and it's interesting. But when you have to think about it, then you experience it, and then you can apply it to other things. Well, here's an insect, and we were talking about exoskeletons. Well, now here's a shrimp, and it's got scent.
So you're telling me
These
that's
are
a bug?
Yeah, exactly, because I can figure it out and apply it myself.
Yeah.
And all those little underlying skills make such a difference to kids growing up in a world that changes every day, and they have to be comfortable with figuring stuff out on their own.
It's not about knowing the information, it's about being curious enough to figure out the information.
Right, or just
putting it together.
Taking your life as a problem-solving 70 years.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to solve all sorts of problems.
Yeah.
Even when you're a grown-up.
Just different problems.
All the time.
Well, I want to ask a question, and I promise we'll get to Elizabeth has a question on here that I've been seeing, and I've been trying to, we're just having so much fun, and the hour is like already over, Andrina. So Elizabeth's question is, have insects gone to space?
10 different species.
10 different species have gone to space.
10 different species of arthropods have been into space.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
on the International
and
Space
do you know
Station.
if anything has changed with them, or it's affected them in any way, or what the research might have been about? Or
so it was.
I know this is like a random
flies.
question I'm asking.
No, people ask that a lot.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Fruit flies, bees, spiders, beetles. Trying to think of some others, but scientists do that, take these animals out into space because they're microcosms for our genetics. Like a fruit fly has very similar DNA to a person.
Really?
And so you can learn what might actually apply to us just from watching something that if it gets hurt or it does weird things, nobody's upset by. You can't just take a dog into space and have anybody be happy about the fact that it is sick the whole time.
Right. Yeah.
It's being hurt, but with bugs you can do that and then apply it to people.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's I think our time is almost up. Rebecca Woodruff, we want to say hi to her. She said it's been very informative and interesting. And I feel like we could spend another hour, Andrina. I enjoy talking with you so much. Yeah.
It's the largest group of animals. There's so much to know, and it's so much fun to learn.
Another question is, what are some common ways to properly display insect collections at home? That's a good. That would be a whole nother hour, probably, a discussion.
Well, just for once you have made the collection and you want to keep it around, the most important thing is you're going to need to protect it from the small beetles that eat other bugs.
Mothballs.
they eat other bugs. The dermestid, what they call skin beetles, and they'll eat the hair. And they'll eat like hunting trophies and zebra rugs. And, yeah, any kind of skin or hair or exoskeleton. Okay. And so if you aren't taking that and sealing it up, taking your collection box and sealing it up completely, you're going to get dermestids. And one day your collection will be beautiful, and the next day you will come back and you will have nothing but pins and like some bits. They can devastate a collection. So it has to be sealed. You can use mothballs. That's great if a collection is not being opened and used and not being added to, because those are benzene, and it's a terrible carcinogen. And so we don't want kids handling mothballs, and some people will burn a pin and put it through the mothball, so you're actually volatilizing all the benzene. But that's only if you're never going to open it again. Okay. If you just want to maintain it, the best thing to do is to drop it into the freezer the coldest freezer you have for a week.
Okay.
And that'll kill anything that's
so
gotten
just
in
occasionally freeze it.
And we do the same. I mean, we have 12,000 different kinds of bugs at the Insect Adventure that are pinned in collection boxes. And every so often, twice a year, we have to put them all through the -80 freezer for a few days to be sure that we're not going to have those problems. Because we've had devastating things happen.
Well, now that makes me think like it's hunting season and people with their mounts, and you mentioned bear rugs or whatever. Like, so what? I mean, how do people deal with that? I guess I heard there's like a fur locker if you have fur jackets. I know that's not a PC thing anymore, but you can actually have your
cedar chests
stored somewhere. So that's why you do that in cedar chests.
Cedar chests are to the terpenes.
Yeah,
are driving insects away. Very few insects can eat
so
cedar.
it's not necessarily moths that we're concerned about, it's these other insects that you mentioned.
And moths too. There are of course clothes moths and hair moths and those and lots and lots and lots of different kinds. It's mainly just sealing something off so that the adult can't get in to lay eggs. And then the larvae is the devastating phase. The adult doesn't do anything except make 500 babies.
And then your population skyrockets.
And then your beautiful mink stole is nothing but the silk lining hanging from the hanger.
Okay. And the follow-up, are there household items that can be used to display a collection? I'm not sure what that is referring to.
To protect a display?
Are there household items that can be used to display a collection? Do you have any more information on that, Laura? So, that second question that you asked?
Elizabeth would like to know, are there household items that can be used to display a collection?
Okay, so I'm going to try and work with what I think is here. So, household items to display a collection. When I hear that, I'm thinking like, okay, I'm going to build a little stand, or I'm going to hang it on the wall and display it. To maintain the health of a collection, really the best thing to do is to freeze it. Just to freeze it. It's the easiest thing to do.
But you could do that like, and I was thinking a different direction with that question is to like, if you want to do an insect collection like in a shadow box or something like that, you could do that, and while that might not seal real well, maybe you could put some sort of seal or glue it shut.
Caulking comes in all different colors. So if you've got a black shadow box, you can get a tube of black caulking and go around that and seal that up once you've got it positioned. A lot of people, professional artists, they take butterflies or beautiful beetles and they put them in those shadow boxes and they display them almost like they're lifelike, open their wings and that sort of thing. And they make hundreds of dollars off of that. Someone will walk into a museum shop and they'll see that beautiful blue morpho butterfly in the shadow box hanging on the little twig. And they'll drop $75.
Wow.
So you can make them lifelike. You can make patterns. There's an amazing artist named Christopher Marley, and I highly advise everybody to check it out.
Christopher Marley.
Christopher Marley. He goes to Malaysia every year, and he collects a ton of beautiful bugs that are kind of similar. And then he makes geometric patterns with them. And so there's butterflies in little circles and beetles all in little rings that are really close, where their legs are tucked under so you don't see anything but the jewel part. I've seen people at another insect zoo, a weevil. Most people have fear no weevil. Like a boll weevil. It's a very common kind of beetle insect. I've seen people make a weevil-shaped beetle in a display box out of
other insects,
little tiny weevils.
Oh wow!
There's lots of different kinds, so you get different shapes. So you can have kind of big weevils for where the eyes are supposed to be, and then if you're making antennae, you can use the little weevils and make them. And
But
adorable.
I have a couple of butterflies in a shadow box that I purchased, and then I think it was had the privilege of going to South Africa, and I think I bought it in South Africa, but it was it actually looks like an African lady in her African dress and stuff, but it's made out of butterfly wings.
Yeah.
And so it's just
cool.
different kinds of butterfly wings. And, they're doing all sorts of stuff. I know you've got a whole collection of jewelry. You've got some monarch earrings on right now.
It's
so
good to have a theme. And
yeah.
orange and black always works at OSU.
Yeah, monarchs are...
These are our mascot
That's
here.
your mascot. So
Yeah.
we're totally over time. So we're gonna wrap up here, but I want to say
we could just roll.
We'll just keep on going. Is it
2
still
hours.
raining outside? Let's just keep on talking. But we definitely need to have you back. We're gonna have you on the show a lot more this season, I think, when we start back up in February.
Things are very quiet for us, simply because we don't go into as many classrooms.
Yeah. So
typically we do 600 presentations every year, and since March I've done 2.
Oh. So if people are
different
interested
level.
in trying to figure out some way to work with a COVID world with you, feel free to contact you. Your information is on your website. I think we probably have that we will put it in the chat, or we'll be putting that up somewhere.
But it's Insectadventure,
okay,
as one word,
okay,
insectadventure.okstate.edu. So
okay.
it's the name's right there, and if you type in Insectadventure on any browser, there's only one Insectadventure.
Okay, perfect.
Because most people don't think insects are much of an adventure. I don't want to do that. And we've been talking about trying to do Zoom presentations with kids getting to, they prepare a little bit, they ask a lot of questions, they write those up, and then we can come in with the animals on Zoom and be entertaining and answer the questions that the kids have.
I mean, if NASA can do it, right, there's no reason why we can't do it in the classroom.
Nope.
So
I got my first webcam a couple weeks ago.
Excellent.
So won't be all like fuzzy and weird.
So yeah, there's a lot of information that we didn't even get to. I apologize.
No, that's fine.
So yeah, check out your website for sure, because one thing I wanted to mention for teachers that might be listening is you have a lot of the curriculum kind of lined out as far as what the state standards are.
Correct.
That you achieve by talking about the insects at the Insect Adventure and stuff like that. So.
And I think for a lot of teachers who aren't scientists or who aren't entomologists, they only think of using insects to do caterpillars turning into butterflies, which is totally magnificent and awesome. But there is not a topic in the world that you can't teach really well with really attentive kids if you use bugs. Music, mathematics, there's language arts. There's nothing you can't teach, but you have to look for those. And we've done that with the past skills, and now we're doing it with the next generation science standards, where they're very vague. And so if you're looking for some kind of how do you tell one kind of animal for another, insects are perfect for that. Classification, and it's not just all life cycles.
And a lot of people are homeschooling now too, for the first time ever. So for anybody that's homeschooling or looking for a field trip, you guys again are open first and third Saturdays of every month from 10 to 2. Is there a fee? Let's talk.
It's $3 a person.
$3 a person.
And there will be no butterflies.
Okay. No.
Butterflies are bad. Spiders are good.
Okay.
And so we have lots of spiders, and we don't do butterflies.
So you avoid the obvious that everybody else goes to and go with all the other stuff.
They're the number one crop pest.
The butterflies are.
They eat 1/3 of all the food that we grow. Spiders actually protect our crops.
Okay. So that is a good teaser for our next conversation. And
spiders, we didn't even cover spiders.
I know, we didn't. We got to lobsters, but we didn't get to spiders. So.
Spiders aren't good dipped in butter.
Oh, that's true. So, Andrina, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, and we will get back. We will get back in touch with you soon. And thank you to all of our listeners that chimed in and joined us. And we will see you in 2 weeks for our next podcast. Take care.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.